I had the pen in my hand before I even understood why my stomach felt tight. The notary pushed the final document toward me and said, "Just sign here. It's standard. Clean transfer." Clean. That word shouldn't have made me hesitate, but it did. My husband sat beside me, knee bouncing under the table like he was trying to shake something off his body. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "We don't have time to second guess this, okay?" he said. "If we wait, everything gets locked. Your father's estate, the accounts, all of it." I looked down at the papers again. My father's name at the top. His estate. Everything he spent his life building after my mother died. The house, the savings, the small rental properties he used to talk about like they were protection, not wealth. He used to say, "Don't ever let people rush you when it comes to what's already yours." Now I was rushing myself. Across the desk, the notary adjusted the stack of papers. Middle-aged, calm face. The kind of man who doesn't say more than necessary. My husband leaned closer to me. "Brielle, I'm telling you, they're already flagging accounts. My company lawyer said this is the only way to keep things from freezing. We'll fix it after." Fix it after. That phrase should have felt safer than it did. The pen touched the paper. Not writing yet. Just resting there. And for a second, I almost convinced myself this was what responsibility felt like. Doing something uncomfortable for the sake of stability. "Sign here," the notary said again, sliding the page a few millimeters closer. Simple motion. But something about it felt rehearsed. Like he had done this exact moment too many times. I pressed the pen down harder. That's when I heard it. "Don't." Quiet. Not loud enough for anyone else to catch. I looked up. The notary hadn't moved, but his eyes were no longer neutral. They were on me. Not the papers. Not the process. Me. My husband noticed my pause immediately. "What?" he asked. "What is it?" The notary cleared his throat once, lightly, and leaned forward like he was just adjusting the paper again. But his voice dropped just enough for me alone. "Don't sign that," he said. My hand froze midair. He didn't blink, didn't look away. Just continued, barely above a whisper. "Something about this doesn't add up." A pause. Then he added, "And your husband knows it." The room didn't change, but it felt like it did. My husband straightened instantly. "Excuse me?" The notary leaned back, face neutral again, almost too quickly. "Everything all right here?" he asked politely, like nothing had happened. But my grip on the pen had changed. Because once someone plants doubt like that, it doesn't leave quietly. It stays. My husband exhaled through his nose. "We're fine. She's just stressed." But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was looking at the documents. For the first time, I noticed what I hadn't before. There was no letter from any court. No official notice. No bank statement attached. Just instructions. Just urgency. My phone buzzed once on the table. A message from him. "We need this done today. Trust me. Trust me." I looked at those words longer than I should have. The notary stood up slightly, just enough to break protocol, and said calmly, "If you're unsure, you can take time. That's your right." My husband turned toward him sharply. "That's not helpful," he said. But the notary didn't respond. Just waited. And in that silence, something inside me shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for me to notice I was no longer rushing to sign. I placed the pen down. Slow. Intentional. My husband's head turned toward me immediately. "Brielle." Not a question. A warning. And for the first time, I didn't answer right away. My husband kept staring at the pen like it had personally betrayed him. "Brielle," he said again, slower this time. "What are you doing?" I leaned back in the chair, buying myself a second to think. Or maybe just breathe. The office suddenly felt too warm. That artificial heat professional buildings always keep too high. I could hear the soft buzzing from the fluorescent lights above us and the ticking of the cheap wall clock behind the notary's desk. 3 sounds I hadn't noticed before. Funny how your body starts recording details once trust cracks open. "I just want to understand everything first," I said carefully. My husband laughed once through his nose. Not amused. Annoyed. "Baby, we already went through this." Did we? That question sat in my head immediately. Because the truth was, we really hadn't. He had talked. I had listened. That wasn't the same thing. The notary stayed quiet, hands folded neatly on the desk now. Professional again. But I could still feel what he had done sitting between us. Something here ain't right. My husband turned toward me fully. If we don't move the inheritance into the protection account before the audit expands, they can freeze everything connected to us. Connected how? I asked. His eyes flickered for half a second. Tiny movement, but enough. Our shared assets, he said quickly. What assets exactly? Another pause. And suddenly he looked irritated that I was asking normal questions. That bothered me more than anything else. Because when we first got married, my husband used to explain everything to me. Bills, credit issues, taxes, even dumb stuff like insurance deductibles. Now it felt like he needed me confused. Brielle, he said quietly, why are you making this harder than it already is? Harder, not safer, not clearer, harder. I looked back down at the paperwork. The transfer wasn't temporary like he claimed. That's what finally hit me. The wording said irreversible asset reassignment. Irreversible. My chest tightened slightly. You said this was temporary, I said. It is temporary, he answered too fast. I slid the paper slightly toward him and pointed at the line. Then why does this say irreversible? That's when the room changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. My husband stopped moving completely. The notary looked down at his desk immediately like he didn't want ownership of whatever happened next. And my husband smiled. Small smile. Controlled. The kind people use when they realize the conversation isn't going where they planned. That's just legal wording, he said. I didn't answer. Because now I was noticing something else. He kept saying urgency. But he never said numbers. Never said amounts. Never showed paperwork from the company supposedly investigating him. Nothing concrete. Only pressure. My father hated pressure tactics. He used to walk out of dealerships just because salesmen hovered too hard. Anybody rushing you usually benefits from your panic, he'd say. I used to think he was overly suspicious. Now I wasn't sure. I want to talk to the lawyer, I said. My husband blinked once. What? The lawyer handling this. He's busy. Then we can wait. His jaw tightened immediately. No, he said. Too quick again. The notary finally spoke, voice calm and even. There's no legal issue with delaying signatures until independent verification is completed. Independent verification. My husband turned toward him sharply. Whose side are you on? Bad question. The second it left his mouth, I felt it. Because honest situations don't usually have sides. The notary didn't react emotionally. He simply adjusted the papers into a neat stack and said, my responsibility is ensuring informed consent. My husband leaned back hard in the chair and rubbed both hands over his face. That should have made me feel bad. Instead, it made me watch him closer. For the first time all morning, I stopped seeing him as my husband under stress. And started seeing him as a man trying to keep control of a conversation. Different thing entirely. His phone buzzed on the table. He flipped it over instantly before I could see the screen. Another tiny movement. Another crack. Look, he said softer now. I know this is overwhelming. I'm trying to protect us. Us. That word sounded different suddenly. Smaller. I stared at him for a long moment. Then asked the question that finally made him look nervous instead of frustrated. How much money do you actually owe? Silence. Not confusion. Not shock. Silence. The real kind. His eyes dropped away from mine first. And that told me everything before he even answered. How much money do you actually owe? The question sat between us like broken glass. My husband looked away first. Not angry. Not offended. Cornered. That's what finally changed everything for me. Because innocent people usually rush toward clarity. Guilty people stall. He rubbed his jaw slowly and exhaled through his nose. It's complicated. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because complicated is what people say when the real number is too ugly to say out loud. How much? I repeated. The notary stayed silent, eyes lowered respectfully. But I could feel his attention sharpen. My husband leaned closer to me and lowered his voice. Brielle, this isn't the place. That answer told me there was definitely a number. A real one. And suddenly all the missing pieces started finding each other. The late night calls he used to step outside for. The random cash withdrawals. The way he started checking the mailbox before me every morning. The stress wasn't fake. Just not the kind he claimed. You said this was about your company, I said quietly. It is. No, I replied. It's about you. His jaw tightened hard enough for me to see it move. Then finally, I can fix it if you just trust me. There it was again. Trust me. No paperwork. No proof. Just trust. My father spent 32 years driving city buses in Atlanta. Woke up at 4 in the morning almost his entire adult life. Ate the same turkey sandwich every shift because he refused to waste money buying lunch outside. That inheritance wasn't luck. It was sacrifice with paperwork attached. And I almost handed it away because my husband sounded scared. The realization made my stomach turn slowly. How much? I asked one last time. This time he answered. About 400,000. The air left my chest so fast it almost hurt. 400,000. Not debt you accidentally fall into. Not temporary trouble. Disaster. What did you do? I whispered. His eyes moved around the room instead of staying on me. Another answer. I had investments go bad. What investments? Silence again. Then, sports betting. I closed my eyes briefly. Not because I was emotional. Because suddenly I was exhausted. All those nights he stayed up working. All those bathroom trips with his phone. All those mood swings. Not another woman. Something worse in its own way. A secret life built on desperation. You gambled away $400,000? I asked. No, he snapped quickly. I borrowed trying to recover losses. Recover losses. That logic. That addict logic. At the rehab clinic where I worked, I heard versions of it every week. Just one more try. One more chance. One more fix. And suddenly I understood why the notary looked at me the way he did. He'd seen this before too. My husband leaned toward me harder now, panic finally replacing control. Brielle, listen to me carefully. If these lenders come after me publicly, it affects both of us. Lenders? Another word he should have used earlier. Another truth arriving late. You said this was an audit. I was trying not to scare you. No, I said softly. You were trying to move my father's money before I understood where it was going. That landed. His face changed immediately, because now the sentence sounded ugly out loud. Real ugly. The notary quietly gathered the unsigned papers into a folder. Professional. Calm. But final. I think today's meeting should end here, he said gently. My husband stood up so fast the chair pushed backward across the floor. You don't understand, he said to me. If you walk away right now, everything collapses. I looked at him carefully. Really looked. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized something painful. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing access. That difference changes a person permanently once they see it. I stood slowly and picked up my purse. My husband stepped closer immediately. Brielle. His voice cracked slightly now. Real fear finally. Not performance. You're my wife. I nodded once. I know. Then I picked up the inheritance folder and held it against my chest. The same way my father used to carry important papers home from work. Carefully. Like protection mattered more than comfort. My husband's voice dropped low. So that's it? You're just leaving me? I stared at him for a long second before answering. No, I said quietly. You left us a long time ago. I just finally caught up to it. Then I walked out of the office carrying the only thing my father ever truly wanted me to keep. A way to survive people who mistake love for permission.